Hey everyone, this is Leo over at Tech Lion, and I wanted to actually bring a game here that I was pretty excited to try when I heard that it was announced a couple of months ago, especially with the announcement of the RTX 40 series of graphic cards that came out. And that is going to be Portal with RTX. It's going to use the new RTX Remix that is supposed to enhance classic games that are out there, and some of them that they showed in these trailers were games like Portal and Morrowind. Portal did come out a couple of weeks ago, and I did try it at the time, but let me be honest, it ran really bad. But fortunately, sometime last week, they actually put out an update on their blog, which we'll switch over to real quick and kind of just show a little bit of a graph as to what's going on over there. Now back over here in Steam, before you actually launch the game, you could see that sometime in the middle of last week, from the date of this recording, they did update this game to have a better performance when it comes to a lot of cards. But one of the things that I did find the most interesting was that they released a chart that we see over here, and we'll just blow this up in the middle of your screen to show what the stats that are on the chart look like. And this chart actually gives us a lot of information about every single NVIDIA graphics card that came out from the 20 series and the 30 series and the exact recommended settings, all of them at 1080p, that you should be running in order to run this game. And that's because when I was originally trying to run this game, I was going with the default settings that it allowed me to run, and it was chugging along in mid 20 frames per second. But once this chart came out and it was saying, hey, if you're running this using, in this case, I'm using an RTX 3070 non-TI version, you should be running at balanced super resolution mode and at medium quality settings. So I kind of want to test that out, see what that looks like at 1080p, and maybe even jump over to 1440p and see how I get any kind of performance when I'm running this game. So let's go jump back into the game and see what we kind of mess with on that side. Now, what I do want to point out before anything is that I was having a lot of trouble actually getting any kind of recording run on this game, and that's because I lost all the footage for about an hour that I did end up recording when I was trying to use the GeForce Experience built-in recorder. All of the footage became corrupted in this specific game, and I'll show you exactly why. When you launch this game, it tells you to press Alt-X to give you this specific menu that we see here. And anytime we switched on this menu, and this is the old RTX Remix menu where you can adjust these settings, it would completely corrupt all the footage. And there was no way for me to actually record the footage that we're seeing right now using the GeForce Experience or using any other tool. This time I'm actually using OBS just so I can do a full-on screen capture and not worry about any tools like that. But we're going to be flipping back and forth between this screen over here and those settings that we saw over at that list that was shown on the blog. On top of that, I couldn't get any of these overlays working either. MSI Afterburner doesn't work while running on this game, and the NVIDIA owned GeForce Experience chart that we would see that would give us things like how much power our graphics card is using, how much we're using out of our processor, anything. I can't put out any data outside of, if you look at the very top left corner over here, the only frames per second counter I was able to get working so far was the built-in one that comes in with Steam. So that's just going to have to be the one that we're going to work with over here. As you can see, it's hovering in the mid 60s. But let's go ahead and jump on into the game, mess with a couple of these settings and kind of see a before and after as to what it looks like with these settings turned off and what it looks like with these settings turned on and the frames per second difference that we get from them. Alright, now that we're actually in game, I did play ahead a little bit just so I could make sure to grab the portal gun, the game's namesake, and we're going to check out one of the rooms here and see some kind of the differences that we have with the game. And if we look at this, and this is with the RTX Remix turned on, we're getting mid 30s as you can see from the counter over on the top left side, but we do have some crazy nice reflections here that we have coming out of the muck or the dissolving acid, and we can even see the shadows are portraying over through the platform, and you can see the ball that's moving around putting all the lights over on the walls. And if we put on the portal itself, you can see just how well it shows that reflection in the portals, and that part is pretty cool. Now something else I think is pretty cool is if you turn on the remix mode, the graphic settings that comes in here, and we go to enhancement assets, we can actually turn this off in real time and see what the game looks like without the RTX Remix on. So let's go ahead and flip this off. Bam, and look at the world now. It's kind of crazy, the things that are all turned off once we actually turned off the item enhancements is we also don't even see the fun reflective walls. Let's just go ahead and turn that back on real quick on the item enhancement. You can see the wall panels are completely changed as well to a more reflective kind. You can see the lights coming off of over on the floors, and you could once again see the reflections coming off the actual acid that's in here. But let's go ahead and just go to the next room. We can see a couple of more of the enhancements that came with the RTX Remix of Portal. Jumping over into another test, we can see a few more of the item enhancements that we have here. We have fancier looking glass. We have fancier looking cubes that are here. And we can kind of flip between the two. And we can see the cube itself is not as fancy once we've turned off the enhancements. To kind of flip right back over to the other one, we can see that it actually has all these lights coming off of it to really show off all the RTX lighting that the game has. And we can see this happening as well over on this button that we have here, where now it's all transparent. You can see through it, the lights are reflecting, and there's even reflections coming off of the button itself, as opposed to, once again, with the button off, it is just a plain old button that we had beforehand. Alright, now that we've looked at the prettiness of all the RTX-ness that we see here within the game, let's talk about performance real quick. And man, I do admire, especially within single-player games, just how nice the RTX system works. You can even see just how well the reflections coming in from the ground, from the sign, the postage, the other lights that are there. And even if we look over to the glass that's over here and walk a little bit closer to it, you can even see the reflection of that little sign that we have on the left side, and my own character's reflection on the glass pane, and just how it bends around depending on the angle that you're standing on, like, you know, real glass would. All that is really cool, but man, let me tell you, the fact that the game runs at the mid 30s, kind of crap. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the settings of the game to the recommended settings that it gave for the RTX 3070, which is what I'm using over here. So once again, if we press Alt-X and we open up this menu, and we look up DLSS 3.0, which, by the way, first, let me start off with this. This is mandatory. Unless you are running a 40 series graphic card, you cannot run this game at any kind of decent frame rate whatsoever with this turned off. So let's go ahead and turn this off, and I'll show you why. So again, we're currently 34 FPS. Let's turn this off, and oh no, that my game just crashed. I think it did. Okay, great. All right, that was a little rough there for a second, and honestly, I was worried because I've seen this game crash a dozen times while I was trying to do all this recording. And let's go ahead and turn this off. And now let's look at this chugging. We're down to 13 FPS with DLSS 3.0 turned off, which is great for DLSS 3.0 to literally triple my frame rate, but that kind of doesn't speak well for the performance of this RTX remix that we're adding with these old games. So this does chug along quite a bit. So let's go ahead back over here and turn on DLSS, and we're going to go by the recommended settings now that it was saying in that chart, which for the RTX 3070, it says go to custom, and as opposed to the super resolution of being auto, we're going to put it on balanced. So now it's going to be at like a certain percentage in between. And for the graphical preset, as opposed to ultra, which I've been using this entire time, we're going to put this over at medium. Great. So now that we're running DLSS on balanced, graphics at medium, close this out, and we're still seeing that we're getting 20 FPS. So at 1080p, 20, 29, 20, 30, give or take there. Yeah, so still kind of hovering at 30, which in my opinion isn't really good performance when we're running this system over here. The crazy thing is that last time I was testing this, I was getting mid-60s. I'm not able to get consistent frame rate with RTX Remix. Sometimes when I ran this game, I would run and get 60, 70 FPS just fine. But now, as you can see, I'm not getting anything over 30. So I got to see if I can get this even lower. Let's go to Ultra Performance. And it did jump up to mid-30s. That's fantastic. And let's put you over to low graphic preset. And I am still at 35 frames per second. And I can even see just how wavy and wobbly the reflection is looking like now with the, yeah, you can even see that ghosting, that really bad ghosting is happening in the glass. So it's a bit rough, and it needs a lot of work. And that's kind of something that I could see being really cool and really useful within a couple of generations from now, not the current generation of cards that we're using. Maybe sometime down the line when we're going to, let's say, maybe the 60 series of graphics cards, but more people have things like the 40 series where the older games could actually look a lot nicer and still perform very well. But man, this is kind of rough when it comes to even the 3070, right? I'm running like one of the mid-tier cards from the last generation, and I'm not even getting 40 FPS at the lowest possible settings that this thing has here. As we could see, we're putting this on low, and let's see if I just turn off the enhancements and see what happens over here. And well, I'm down to 40 now, but as you can see, it looks pretty awful. It's like, what's the point if we have this all turned off? So that's probably why, if you ever look in the Steam store, this game kind of has a mixed review on it, and that's because you're either running an AMD card, which makes this impossible to work, as that stays at like the lowest possible frame rate, because AMD cards don't have the ability to use deep learning super sampling. They can only use these two other options that are here. But yeah, this needs some work. It's my opinion on it. Give it a couple of more generations, and I think we'll see ourselves some pretty good games that are going to come out with these systems. But for now, it's nice to look at, but not nice to play. All right, and just one more test that I wanted to try here before we kind of sign off and go in a couple of more test chambers deep is we're now checking out the game at 1440p. And we decided to put the DLSS back to normal and leave the graphic preset on the Ultra. And man, this game is still running kind of ugly. I'm going to be honest about that. 14 FPS average, you can literally count the frames as they're going across. And this is what I was trying to run originally when I was playing the game. And I'm like, wow, why would I run this game at this setting? Because this is pretty awful. But let's go ahead and put it down to the recommended preset that they recommended for the 3070s, which at 1440p, we'll see what happens over here. So once again, going back to DLSS 3.0, going to set that to custom, and as opposed to auto, we'll put you to balance, like they recommended, and put you to medium. And frame rate only went up by a few, so now it's over at 14, 18 now. So it's still not looking that fantastic. I'll be completely honest about that. This is something that does require a lot of work. And maybe some of you out there are having a lot better time trying to actually run this game. Maybe you have even more powerful cards. If you have a 3080 Ti, 3090, or even a 40 series graphic card, let me know how this game works for you. Because I'll be honest, it's not looking very pretty to me. At this point, I would rather replay just the original game, which runs way better than this, and I'd probably have an even better time, as I think performance, especially when it comes to any kind of FPS game, single player or otherwise, it's really important, and this is something that they're going to take a while to nail down. But hey, this is just a lot like when RTX first came out for graphics cards, back when the 20 series came out about 4 years ago, is that it was rough. RTX for games like Shadow of the Tomb Raider or Battlefield 5, when they originally came out, was kind of not great. It ran really bad. And then you had the 30 series of graphics card came out, and it was just a huge leap of performance for these kinds of modes. And of course, the 40 series that came out, and I don't own one yet. If you've got one for me, let me know. Is another massive jump in performance, especially when it comes to using RTX in gameplay. And even for folks that are running AMD 7000 series of graphics card, same thing. Giant jump in RTX performance. I don't have one of those yet, so clearly I'm going to have to deal with the fact that I still can't run games at RTX very well at 1440p, which is fine. I generally don't keep it turned on when I play games like Darktide currently. So for me, it's not that big of a loss, but for you guys, it might be. So let me know what you think down below. If you have any comments, questions, please let me know. And until next time, this is Leo signing off. Ciao.